Good evening, Ruchim Abayim Rabotai. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. My sincere apologies on coming late, but when you come late, you got to bribe people, so I'll give you gifts before you leave today, and we'll be on good terms. Tonight's class, I sponsored Leilin Shema, my brother, Rav Yisrael Meir, Ben Saraz, Chutei Yagen Aleinu, Amen. May the Torah that we learn and the chizuk that come out be a chizuk for him. So I had a dilemma before tonight's class that I actually had to consult with a figure that I consider a Talmid Chacham, that I respect his opinion on things. On one hand, is Parashat Vayishlach. There's so much to talk in Parashat Vayishlach, we can go on for weeks. On the other hand, by next Thursday, the shiur is going to be post the first night of Chanukah candle lighting. And man, how can you go into Chanukah without knowing what Chanukah is? And I have no guarantee that somebody else is going to do the job. So I didn't know which one was more important, and I barely get through one, forget about two things in one night. So I called this gentleman who I respect a lot. And he told me, in Halakha, in Echot Pesach is brought down, it's based on a Gemara. Moshe tiken lahem l'Yisrael, Moshe was mitaken for Klal Yisrael, they learn Ilchot Chag b'Chag, each holiday they learn the halachot of that holiday. It continues that how long before the holiday? So by Pesach, and I stress Pesach, it says Shloshim Yom Kodem Achag. 30 days before the holiday, you learn the Ilchot Pesach. There's a machloket in the poskim if that applies to every holiday or only Pesach. Most poskim hold the halacha that 30 days is a gauge for Pesach, because for Passover there's so many halachot. Halavai in 30 days you learn them. But for other holidays that don't have any halachot, Ilchot Chanukah is not that long and complicated, so less time is enough. Other poskim say no, Moshe was mitaken, 30 days is for every holiday. One way or the other, in Chassidut at least, it is learned that 30 days before a holiday, the ashpaot of the holiday already start coming down. So I don't know if you've been feeling in the past few weeks the ashpaot of Chanukah yet, but if not, hopefully now, tonight you will by the time we're done. And therefore, based on that, he said that he thinks that Chanukah, and then he said, and if you could find a way to tie it into the Parashat too, then it would be even better. So we're going to try and we'll see what comes out. So, the Gemara in Shabbat, the Chafal from Udbet begins, Mai Chanukah, what's Chanukah? And you know the next two words are? The Tanu Rabbanan, that the rabbis learned. Today, if you ask somebody, Mai Chanukah, they say that we have a party every night. Yeah, and the Gemara says otherwise. The Gemara says, Mai Chanukah, what's Chanukah? The Tanu Rabbanan, that the rabbis learned, they sat and learned. No, it's a good thing to know. That Chanukah and learning doesn't contradict it. That's what they fill each other. Kinel mitzvah v'torah or. To learn more on Chanukah. I'm skipping a little bit in the Gemara just to get to the punchline. When the Yivanim came, this is after the rest of the story. Timu kol hashmanim, they made all the oil impure. When the Chashmonaim, the household, it was a joint effort. According to Rashi, it was 13 people of the household of the Chashmonaim. When they won v'nitzchum and they beat the Greeks, they only found one properly sealed oil. There was many oil, that wasn't the issue, but according to the halakha, it has to have a seal to show that it wasn't touched, so it's not tameh. They can only find one. There was only enough to light one day. A miracle happened, and it lasted and they lit. It doesn't say it lasted. And they lit from it for 8 days. And if the Gemara didn't just write v'dalak shmona yamim, there's a reason why. V'hidliku, they proactively lit from it for 8 days. In a minute, we'll see that's the way the Bet Yosef understands the whole idea of Chanukah. Okay, this everybody knew, right? That's not a big deal. So. Some of the halachot of Chanukah, I'm not here to give a halakha class, I'm just selectively choosing one halakha that has to do with the theme of tonight. According to the halakha, the chatchila, we light the candles of Chanukah by the door of our house outside. In Chutz La'aretz today, with anti-Semitism and whatever, we don't do that, but that's the way it should be ideally. And as well as the place that we put it is very interesting. Above 3 tfachim from the floor and under 10 tfachim from the floor. And this is not talking about the size of the menorah, it's talking about where the flame is. Meaning if somebody has a menorah that's 4 tfachim tall, you could put it on the floor, because then the fire is above 3 tfachim. This is a very interesting concept, because almost everywhere else in Judaism, everything that's under 10 tfachim is pasul. And over here, the chatchila, we deliberately put something under 10 tefachim. It's an interesting, you have to understand why. Why is it different? On the flip side, in the height of Neirot Chanukah, again, we're talking about the times that we lit Neirot Chanukah for the outside world, not for our own. Today we light Chanukah for our household, so this is less applicable. The Chazal learn, Gemara says, and we learn this in Halacha, that if you lit the Neirot Chanukah above 20 amot, according to the Chazon Ish, that's 40 feet, then also, pasul, you didn't do the mitzvah of Neirot Chanukah. Now today that's not applicable because if you live in a high apartment, in a skyscraper, in the penthouse, you can light it, because you light for the Bnei Habayit, you light for the people within your household to see, so it makes no difference what the height is. But theoretically, in the times that you lit for the outside, then above 20 amot is pasul. That is a concept that we see in other places. For example, by sukkah, that the schach is above 20 amot, so it's pasul. The Gemara has a machloket. Why? But one way or the other, it's pasul. So that's not a new concept, but it's a concept that exists. Also in Neirot Chanukah. Interestingly enough, when the Gemara brings down this idea that a Chanukiah, meaning the menorah that you put above 20 amot, is pasul, the Gemara says that in the name of somebody. Amar Rav Kahana, Darash Rav Natan bar Minyoni, Mishnei de Rav Tanchum. Meaning the final rabbi on the list of the way was Rav Tanchum. Rav Tanchum learned that if you took a Ner Chanukah and lit it above 20, now we got an issue. What's interesting about that the Gemara continues over there with another memra, another quote from Rav Kahana in the name of Rav Minyoni, in the name of Rav Tanchum, which seems to have nothing to do with the previous one. Now this is not that big deal of a question because there are many times in the Gemara that the Gemara brings things that don't have to do one with another just because it was the same Baal Memra, the same rabbi that said both things. That was enough of a reason to bring them both. But if there's an explanation that links them, obviously it's better. We're going to read in the Parashat, not this week, next week. Mai dichtiv, what is it that it says in the pasuk? Va'bo rek en bo mayim. Let's give some background to the story. The brothers feel that the brothers, I mean the tribes, Yaakov's children, feel that their brother Yosef's out to get them. Not only out to get them, he's out to destroy their olam haba as well. As a result, they posek the halacha, which God agreed with, that he has the halacha v'rodif, somebody who's coming to kill them. If somebody's a rodif, you're allowed to kill him first, self-defense. So they were posek a halacha that they're allowed to kill their brother. Of course, there's a lot of depth to that beyond the way I just said it, but at least this is for factual purposes. They got together, they were 9, they wanted 10, God agreed with them, he was the 10th man, and they concluded that they're going to kill their brother. Instead, Reuven came up with an idea. Reuven says, no, let's not kill him. Let's throw him into this pit. Let's throw him into the pit. What pit? Va'borek en bo mayim. A pit that's empty. A deep pit that's empty. So the Gemara asks, of course, if it's va'borek en bo mayim, if you say something's empty, obviously it has no water in it. Pasuk says, va'borek, the pit was empty, en bo mayim, it has no water. Yeah, if it was empty, it has no water, obviously. So what's the extra ein bo mayim? Comes the Gemara and says, Ela mayim ein bo. Water it doesn't have. Aval nechashim va'akravim yesh bo. Scorpions and snakes, lethal scorpions and snakes, it has. That's the continuation of the Gemara in the sugya of Chanukah. So of course, again, it's not the end of the world because it was the same rabbi that said both memot. It's common that the Gemara does that. But obviously, if there's a connection, it would be a lot more pleasant. And we have to understand the whole long list of things here. I'm going to try and figure them out at the end with one simple concept. Maran, in the Bet Yosef, in Orach Chaim, Siman Taf Reshayin, right at the beginning, has, I think, the most written about question in the whole Jewish literature. Why do we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days? We should only celebrate 7 days. One day, they had oil for. Right? We just read in the Gemara. They found oil for 1 day. Had a miracle happen, and the oil for 1 day was able to light for 8 days. So the miracle was 7 extra days. So if we're celebrating the miracle of the oil, we should celebrate 7 days, not 8 days. So of course, as Jews, we always like a celebration. So we took another day. Why not? But we bridge the weekend, we call it. But in reality, I have a non-Jewish client that once asked me, when do you guys work? So I said, what does that mean? He says, I call you Friday, you say it's after Chatzot, you don't work Friday after 12 o'clock. I call you Saturday, there's no answer, it's Shabbat. I call you Saturday night, you tell me you're with your family time. Sunday, I don't work. Every other day by you guys is either a fast day, a holiday, a day of prayer, or you're in your study hall studying. So when do you work? How does your business operate? I said, so let me ask you something. Who's considered a more successful individual in life? One who works 80-hour weeks and makes X amount of dollars at the end of the year, or one who works 4-hour weeks and makes the same amount of dollars at the end of the year? He said, obviously the one who works 4 hours a week. I said, thank you. That's the successful one between us. I said, when do I work? Whenever I work. Who cares when? The question is the bottom line, the end result. What does it make a difference? It was a stupid question, is that? So besides, if you want to know, because we have so many holidays, so God overcompensates us and says, I don't want you to feel that you're going to lose because you don't work Saturday, you don't work holidays, So I'm going to allow you to make more money in a shorter period of time, so you shouldn't feel deprived. And that's why we don't walk around feeling second class. We actually walk around feeling above first class. We control the banking system, we control the political system, we pretty much control the whole country. And we're proud to say that we do that. That's God's blessing in return, in exchange for all our holidays. God was quiet for a couple of minutes, and he says, you know what, maybe I should try one of these holidays. I'll tell you the truth, for you it's going to be just bad luck, so it might not be a good idea. But anyway, the Goyim can't understand our lifestyle. Every other day is a holiday. They have their dumb holiday, they put the same music on for a month and a half straight. Everywhere you go, you're like praying for the holiday to be over so you don't have to hear the same song 800 times a day, no matter where you walk into. And it's one day with one fantasy. And this year they have a problem. Santa's over 65, so he's high risk. And COVID, he can't come. So it's a serious crisis. Nobody knows what's going to be over here. And they didn't figure out how to put a mask on his beard yet and whatever. There's serious trouble going on. So maybe the holiday is going to be Batel. I don't know. They were already Mevatel Thanksgiving. So maybe they're going to be, maybe it's not good for retail. I have a lot of friends in retail. But one way or the other, it just shows how crazy the world became, right? And we have 8 days. Same guy asked me once on a different occasion. I was explaining him about Chanukah. Chanukah, I light on time, bli neder. So we'll talk about the halacha on time in a minute. And I explained to them, therefore, from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and on, it's not a good time to try to reach me. So because I light my candles about 5 o'clock or so, a few minutes before 5, soon I'll explain the calculation. And it takes me at least an hour to prepare before and to prayers and whatever. And for half an hour after, I'm for sure out of commission, but then dinner and everything else, another hour and a half. So after 3, I'm out of commission during Chanukah. So then he tells me, and how many days does that go on for? I said 8. I said, not only that, the 8th day, it's a 24-hour story, because it's a very special day, Zot Chanukah. So that's already, so it's 7 days like that, and 1 day completely gone. So the guy tells me, wait a second, and what do you guys do? So I can tell a guy, most goyim know the basics. He didn't know anything. So I told him, we give gifts to our kids. He says, I go broke from Christmas, 1 night. How do you do 8 nights in a row of gifts? I said, I'm telling you, it all comes from the not working theme. It all goes with the same thing. The same God, he arranges it all for us. If the oil lasted 8 days, the gifts last 8 days too. Unbelievable. So that's the Beit Yosef's question. What are we celebrating, right? And this is a question I think the most Jewish literature was written about. It's interesting. There's when I was a young teenager, I think I was in 9th grade. No, I was younger than a teenager in 9th grade, but whatever. There was a sefer that was called The Question with 100 Answers. So there was 100 answers on this Beit Yosef's question. As I grew older, somebody put out another sefer with 500 answers. 2 years ago in a shiur, somebody gave me a gift, a sefer that has 1,000 answers. Recently I looked on Otzar Chochmah, they're already up to 2,500 answers. All the Chachamim since the Beit Yosef till now, it's such an obvious question. Honestly, the question was really asked prior to the Beit Yosef, but we call it the Beit Yosef's question, all wrote answers to this. Beit Yosef has 3 answers himself. And one of his answers is this. He says, there was a miracle all 8 nights. Why was there a miracle all 8 nights? Because they didn't utilize all the oil the first night. They took the oil, divided it into 8 parts, and lit each night 1 part. And really, it should have went out after a few minutes, and instead it It burnt till the next day. So there was a miracle already on the first night. Here's one of his answers. Sounds good, no? Wow, they had a miracle the first day. Problem is, halakha doesn't work with your feelings. Nobody really cares about your feelings. And according to the halakha, if you have enough oil for one day, that means you could do the mitzvah menorah for one day in Beit HaMikdash. You're not allowed to split the oil up. You have to use it. In somchim alanes, you can't rely on a miracle and say, I'm going to have a miracle. It's better to do one mitzvah right than to do 8 mitzvot wrong. Because they're not mitzvot. It's better to have one than to have nothing. Technically, by splitting up the oil 8 days, they had nothing. They had no mitzvah. So, yeah, it sounds like a great answer, but how are they allowed to do it halachically? What was the logic behind it? So the answer is they were convinced that they were going to have a miracle. Okay, where in halakha do we see that when you're convinced that you're going to have a miracle, you're allowed to do something? I never heard of such halakha. If anything, the Gemara says, "Ein somchim el hanes." We don't rely on miracles. Many, many times in Bavli, Yerushalmi, in the Midrash, over and over again. So there has to be that there's a difference. Why over here they were allowed to rely on a miracle, in other cases maybe they weren't. Not maybe, for sure you're not allowed. So in order to figure that out, we're going to see that this concept is not a singular concept. It's a thing that goes straight across the Torah. The Gemara Bachot Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph talks about an interesting situation. They had a type of snake that was coming out of a hole, and it was biting people, killing people. Its venom was killing people. And they went to Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Then they didn't have exterminators, I guess, or whatever. I don't know who you call with such situations. We should never know. But then they used to go to the rabbi for everything. So they went to Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, and they told him, "What do we do, Rabbi? We're in trouble. We got this issue." Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa told them, "Show me where the hole is." It was called an arud in the Lashon of the Gemara. Show me where the arud's coming out of. They brought him there. The Gemara says that he put his foot there. And it doesn't even say his foot, the heel of his foot. I don't know why the heel, but he put the heel of his foot. And when he put the heel of his foot, comes the Gemara and says, the snake right away, this arud came to bite him. Right? Perfect. He got the prey, he didn't have to look for it. When he came to bite him, the snake died, not him. He fixed the problem. But the Gemara doesn't end there. Up there is a very famous story. I think when you were in preschool, your Morah taught it to you. The Gemara says that he went and bent down and then took the snake out, the dead snake. And he brought it to the Bet Midrash. Sounds weird. You don't bring... Imagine somebody walked into the synagogue with a dead cat tomorrow morning. I think he would be dead, right? He's not going to survive. Well, he brought it to the Bet Midrash. Why did he do that? Comes the Gemara and says, he showed it to the students. And he said, "Banai, my children." That's the way the rabbis used to love their students. It was like their children. Lo arud memit. Snakes don't kill. Ela chet memit. Sin kills. I had no sin, so the snake died. I didn't die. So he said, Lo arud memit. He wanted to teach them a lesson for life. You have to be scared of a snake. You have to be scared if you have a problem. If you got hurt, then what's wrong with me? Comes the Gemara and concludes, Tasha, at that time, Amru, they said, Oy lo la'adam shepaga bo arud. Woe to the person that the arud, the snake, hurt him, harmed him, or killed him. Because that shows he must have had sins, otherwise it would have not hit him. Oy lo la'arud, and poor snake, shepaga Rabbi Chanina. They tried to get Rabbi Chanina because now he's dead. He picked the wrong fight with the wrong person. That's the way the Gemara concludes. Comes the Marsha on the spot over there in the Gemara and asks the obvious question. How, al pi halacha, was it permissible for Rabbi Chanina to put his foot on the hole of the thing? You're not allowed to put your hole there. You can't put yourself in a place of danger. It's dangerous. A snake has venom. It has killed people. It has proven to kill. What was his heter to go put his foot? The Marsha takes it further. What are we going to say? That he relied on a miracle. Ein somchim el hanes. You're not allowed to rely on a miracle. More than that, the Gemara in Shabbat Daf Lamed Bet Amud Aleph writes a clear halacha, and it's brought down also in halacha, that a person is not allowed to put himself in a makom sakana, in a place of danger. If you want to know how far it goes, I'm not saying this halacha l'maaseh because circumstances change in Israel by the minute, but many years ago, Maran Rabbi Yashiv Zitzal once told me that I'm not allowed to walk to the Kotel on Shabbat Now again, I stress, this is not halakha for always. It was, then specifically, it was the middle of the Second Intifada. He said, because it's dangerous. The Arabs are doing crazy things as usual. And you can't put yourself in a place of danger. Even as many soldiers as there are, you're just not allowed to do it. Pi halakha, a lot of these settlements in Israel in different places, I don't want to say names because a lot of my friends and viewers live in settlements, but it's against Shulchan Aruch. You're not allowed to go live on top of a mountain surrounded by a bunch of terrorists. Besides, it's also unfair. You can't endanger people. And then you endanger thousands of soldiers that have to protect you. What type of insanity is that? But okay, maybe they have their rabbis that told them to do it. I'm not, God forbid, judging anybody. I'm sure they have a reason why they do what they do. And the outcome is they hold on to a big part of Israel, so, thank God. But the outcome doesn't justify the means. The Gemara says clearly, you're not allowed to put yourself in a makom sakana, in a place of danger. If you want to know, in practical halakha, it was written in a few Sfarim recently. People ask Rav Chaim Kanievsky an interesting question. When you go from, let's say, Jerusalem, I'm just more familiar with that route, so that's why I'm picking the towns. From Jerusalem to Miron, to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, there's two ways you could do it. Either you could take a highway called Kvish 6, that's the only highway in Israel that has tolls. Or you could take, you go through Tveria, through Kvish Abika, whatever, the other way. Over there's no tolls. So the yeshiva boys don't want to pay 60 shekel each way, or whatever it is. So they prefer to go the other way. The other way, you go through a couple of Arab villages. It happens to be the Druzis, and they're not bad guys. Some of them even served in the IDF. But a guy is a guy. You never know what's going to be, who you could trust when. So they asked Rav Chaim Kanievsky, I saw in a few Sfarim recently, if al pi halakha today, so it used to be the only way to go was through this other street, Kvish Abika it's called. But now that we have Kvish 6 for many years already, which by the way is owned by a Bukharian Jew, in Israel, the main highway is owned by a Bukharian Jew. It's funny. But, when government does things, it gets messed up. When you privatize things, it works. That's the lesson that we should learn from that. But one way or the other, now is a person allowed to go through Kvish Abika? Because the other one is definitely safer. And Chaim said, no, you can't go through Kvish Abika. You can't put yourself in a place of danger. But they told him, but it's not terrorist Arabs, it's whatever. He said, in halakha it says when you go to the barber, if the barber's a guy, you have to have a mirror in front of you because you have to suspect that instead of cleaning your neck with the razor, he's going to slice your throat. And you're telling me about an Arab village that it's safe? I know a lot of people are not going to like this. That sounded racial. They should take it up with Rav Chaim Kanievsky directly. Leave me out of it. But that's the way, and good luck. But that's the way. That's the Jewish way of thinking. We don't put ourselves into danger. So the Maharsha says, if that's the case, how is Rabbi Chanina allowed to put his foot there? He deliberately put himself into a danger. How is he allowed to do that? Based on that question of the Maharsha, we have to ask the same question about the whole thing, the whole story of Chanukah. Not the story of the oil. That's the story the Gemara says. But there was another part to the story, the war. You had 13 people, according to Rashi. The other Rishonim would say it was less, 6 maybe. But 6, 7, it's argued. But Rashi holds 13, so we'll go with the number 13. 13 people, one family, a father, some sons, maybe there were some other relatives. They go to fight an army, which the lowest number the Chazal estimate the army was 6 million soldiers, but the numbers are a lot bigger, according to most of the documented history. What was the hete al pi halakha to go to such a war? You know for sure you lost in 3 seconds. So how are you allowed to even start it? Besides, what was the logic? Every child knows you don't pick a fight with somebody bigger and stronger than you because you're going to lose. I don't know if every child knows that. The Iranians still didn't understand that. Thank God we got rid of another one of those terrorists this week. When I say we, it's, even though the Israelis are not going to take credit for it, Baruch Hashem, the Israeli Mossad does their work with a lot of siyat d'shmaya and accomplish what nobody else does. The mastermind of their nuclear program. They thought now that this Russia Biden is coming in, they're going to be able to get deals again and whatever. So the Israelis said, we'll be one step ahead of you. We'll take your head guy away first. Now go figure it out. And by the time you figure it out, we'll have 2024 already. We'll figure out the next solution. That's all this game is. It's just, keep on buying time. I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple of years ago, the Iranians succeeded to hack into one of Israel's commercial websites, nothing substantial. So the Israeli hackers announced, not that they went to hack back, they announced it in advance, that tonight at midnight there will be revenge. They shut down the electricity of 45% of the entire country. Like, no balance in warfare at all. There's no nothing. It's a joke. But, okay, they don't understand that. But they don't understand it, not because they don't understand it. They understand it too. But they don't care to die. Iran and Iraq, when they had a war, 1 million people died there, nobody cared. So if you have no value for life, then of course you'll pick a fight with anybody, because what does life mean? But Am Yisrael has a value for life. But else, if one soldier gets wounded, the whole country's upside down. And so when you have a value for life, at that point you don't take extra risks. So what was Matityahu thinking? Now what was he thinking faith in that? Al pi halacha, what was his heta al pi halacha to go fight such a fight? There's no heta. He should have raised the white flag. Elamai, they might kill him because he doesn't want to, it was Gzerat Hashmad, so he should die al kizeh. But to go pick a fight lahedir, that you're not allowed to do. It's a very tough question. It's not so simple at all. If you want to know, look in Dvarim Lamed Gimel Yud Aleph in Rashi, you'll see where the number 13 comes from. You'll understand it from there. Anyway, so how was it? And it's a suicide mission. Al pi halacha, if you commit suicide, you're not even buried in a Jewish cemetery. And they're heroes. Beit Chashmonaim, they're heroes. They got the kingdom afterwards. So obviously, they were allowed to do what they did. So based on what? So in order to understand this, let's learn a Gemara and Ta'anit. And I want to say that a lot of the sources that I'm saying tonight are not because I'm so brilliant, but because there are many brilliant Sfarim that came out. Tonight I'm utilizing the services of a wonderful rabbi named Rav Eliyav Edry, a Sephardi rabbi, who compiled a bunch of sources on the subject, did a great job. The Gemara Masechet Ta'anit Daf Chafei says, a very famous story. The female side, for sure, everybody knows this story. That once the daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa lit Shabbat candles. You have to understand why she lit Shabbat candles. Single girls don't like candles, sorry Chabad, but in Halacha you're not allowed to. Meaning you can light the candles for no reason before your mom, so you're not Mechalel Shabbat, but you can't say a blessing. Fine. So you got to say he didn't have a wife and she lit instead of him. That's probably what happened. One way or the other, she lit candles, and when she lit candles, she realized that by mistake, instead of putting in oil, she put in vinegar. Vinegar is not a flammable liquid. No. It's a bad idea, no? And it doesn't smell so good. So there's 2 strikes over there. So after she lit candles, she realized the mistake. Now we got a problem. She had tsar. You have to understand the Gemara. It could be it was even before she lit the, I don't know, but after for sure. She had tsar from it. Not only that, it seems like from the Gemara that there wasn't even an option of the father lighting candles, because a man doesn't accept Shabbat with candle lighting. Technically, her father could have poured oil and lit candles, and then we solved the problem. But it seems like that wasn't an option, because mashma in the Gemara that they didn't have any oil in the house. And that's how this mistake happened in the first place. She didn't realize because she thought it was a bottle, but in reality it was the wrong bottle, and there was no other bottle. So there was no. Now there's not going to be light for Shabbat. Not going to be light for Shabbat is a double problem. Number one, that she didn't do the mitzvah of Adlakat Nerot, but number 2, back then they relied on this for light. They didn't have lights. This was their light, the candles. Now what? There's not going to be light. That's a disaster. So she goes to her father, sees that she looks sad, and the Gemara doesn't say that she went to her father, by the way. Which is an important point. This is good for a chinuch class, that fathers have to be in tune to their children's feelings and realize them on their own. They don't have to wait for the kid to come crying. That's too late already. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa saw in his daughter that something's wrong. So why are you betzah? It's Shabbos. Shabbos, you have to be happy. So she told her what happened. I put vinegar. What's going to be? There's going to be no candles. So Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa responded just factually. The same God that told oil to be a flammable thing will tell the vinegar to be a flammable, meaning candles will have. That's what he answered. No, what happened? The Gemara says that not only did the candles stay lit at night when they needed them for the time of the meal, a double miracle happened. The candles burnt until Motzei Shabbat, more than the oil lights normally. Like a double mirror. No. Sounds like a nice story, right? Every girl for sure knows this. Every boy probably knows the story too. Now you know that it's a Gemara, it's not just a story, and the source. But, I don't know. There's in Jewish thought, this story isn't really so nice. Number one, what did he tell her? That we're going to rely on a miracle? We just said clearly, Chazal say, "En somchim al hanes." We don't rely on miracles. So what was his words of encouragement? It's too late. There's nothing to do about it. That's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says we're going to rely on a miracle. Hashem's going to make a miracle. Number two, we clearly know from many places in Chazal they're not allowed to even pray for miracles. So it causes you harm. It takes from your zchuyot. There's a lot of issues with it. It could even be a sakana. The Gemara says the story of Rava. There are many issues with it. So he's telling her factually there'll be a miracle. And what's pshat? Number three, let's be real. If it was something that we were trying to save the whole Jewish nation or whatever, and he went and he made a miracle, okay, I understand. Let's even say it wasn't the whole Jewish nation. He's trying to save a life. One Jewish life is like the whole world. I also understand that he made a miracle. But what was he trying to do over here? To make his daughter smile? That there'll be candles? What would happen if there weren't candles? His daughter wasn't a millennial. She's not a baby. She would have dealt with it very well. She wouldn't be depressed. She wouldn't need therapy. Everything would be fine. They'll eat in the dark, fine, romantic dinner. Now what? So for a daughter's mood of that few seconds of tzara that she had on Erev Shabbat, so for that, now we have to be Mshaneh Sidrei Beishit? To go to such an extreme? It's pshat. The whole thing's a pillar. This is not my question. Rav Dessler talks about it. Obviously, Machshova, Rav Dessler. By the way, Rav Dessler writes something when he talks about that a person's not allowed to put himself into a place of sakana. His example of putting himself into a place of sakana, he says that al pi halacha you're not allowed to go bungee jumping. I'm not saying that. La halacha, I don't know. Each person should ask his local rabbi. I can't tell you myself. Many years ago, 19 to be exact, I started taking flying classes. Not to become a commercial pilot. I'm just an air hobbyist. I love airplanes. And then there was a rabbi, Rav Yitzchak Abadi, Hashem send him refuah shlema. He's not young anymore, and he needs a refuah shlema, and he didn't like it. Happens to me, my Rebbe agreed to it, so I did it anyway. But he told me that at the end of the day, flying is a sakana, and if it's l'tzorech, if there's a need, so then fine, it's a mean of transportation. But there's not a need, there's hobby flying. And he says it's not even a real plane, right? When you start on a Cessna, on a single prop. There's no need in it. So you're not allowed to put yourself in a place of sakana. You can't do it. My Rebbe disagreed with him, and that's why I ended up doing it, because my Rebbe said, if you it's a tzorech, you have a lot of energy that you have to let out. No, that's called a tzorech. You're allowed to do it. Fine. Probably being ADHD, I guess, one of that terim that you get. But Rav Dessler writes about bungee jumping. He doesn't like it because of that. I didn't know that in the times of Rav Dessler there was something called bungee jumping, but I guess there was some variation of it. And he says, what's your head to put yourself in a danger? I don't know the guidelines of that, so I'm not telling, I'm not saying halakha l'maaseh, I'm just explaining a concept. Because if you want to say danger, there's no end to danger. To go in a car is dangerous, to cross the streets, right? And if not, not. So obviously everything in life is assessed risk. And there's no clear halakha and shulchan aruch of what assessed risk means. So it's not so simple. So I'm not telling you you're not allowed to bungee jump. If you want to get nauseous, go right ahead. And I'm biased, because I think it's a very thrilling sport. But one way or the other, comes Rav Dessler and explains, why ain't somchim al hanes? Why not? Adarabah. If anything, emunah, I believe in Hashem, Hashem's going to make me a miracle. Right, if you play the emotional game, I can market it in such a beautiful way. They'll still put clips on the daily doses of it. It could be marketed so beautifully. And I saw a lot of those clips lately. Such a emunah Hashem, for sure, special. Problem is, that's nice, again, when you want to play the fiddle, you want to play emotional games, yeah, you can play on people's emotions. But if you're at hardcore intellect and you're grounded to intellect, like the Torah wants you to be, so then, no, you can't rely on a miracle. Because what does a miracle mean? That God is going to do a miracle for me. Why is He going to do a miracle for me? Because He loves me, and because I deserve it. Even if He loves me, if I don't deserve it, He's not going to do it for me. Because there's a court system in heaven. So now I'm an arrogant person that thinks that I deserve everything. I'm a millennial. God didn't like millennials. He wrote so in the Gemara. Ein somchim al hanes. Don't think anybody owes you anything. I don't owe you anything. I'm not progressive. I'm not a Democrat. Nobody owes you a thing. So if you rely on a miracle, it means you decided that I owe you something. No, that's not the way the world works. I don't owe you anything. Comes Rav Dessler and says 2 words, Magia li. I deserve it. It's owed to me. He says if somebody says it's owed to me, so he does the sin of chet hayohara. He's a Baal Gava. What does God say about a Baal Gava? Ta'avat Hashem kol gvad lev. Hashem resents. He can't stand the person who's an egomaniac, self-centered person, narcissist. So of course he's not going to have a miracle. So not only isn't Somchim al hanes going to help, it's actually going to be the most damaging thing that could be. And that's why we're obligated to do Ishtadlut. Let's be real. What are we all wasting our time for going to work, especially now, Zoom work and this work and that work, that type of work? Let's come to the shul. Baruch Hashem, the Jewish nation had a huge victory in Supreme Court last week. Finally, it's just a year too late, that they can't infringe on our religious rights. Yamach Shemo, this governor, it's good that he got what he got, finally. And so we could all come to shul, nobody could tell us anything anymore. And we sit and learn all day, and Hashem's going to save money through the chandeliers. It's going to it'll come out, the bulbs will explode, and the bills will come out, and cash too, and whatever. What could be better? What's the answer? It's not going to work. Why is it not going to work? Because Hashem said it's not going to work. That's Somchim al hanes. And Hashem says you can't rely on miracles. You have to do. This doesn't contradict the Kola movement. There are Yechidim in every generation. We said other Shiurim about that have to learn, and we have to support them. But I'm talking about for the Hamonam. Harbe asu, like the Gemara says in Brachot Lamed Hey Amud Bet that we spoke about a few weeks ago. So, obviously, comes Rav Dessler and says, if you put yourself into a situation that you think that you're owed something, then you already have a problem with Gava. If you have a problem with Gava, then you're already on Hashem's bad list. If you're on Hashem's bad list, He's not going to help you anymore. He's not going to, that's it, you're doomed. So not only is it not going to work, it's going to be counterproductive for you. So if that's the case, that all the questions become bigger. So how did Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa do what he did? How did Mattiyahu do what he did? And honestly, if you look through the Gemara and Bavli, there are countless stories like this in different variations and ways. And historically, go back into Jewish history. Jewish history was built on miracles. So how does all this work? Comes Rav Dessler and says that a person can't rely on a miracle. But there are yichidim, there are individuals in every generation that elevated their faith to a level that there is no such thing as a miracle. They don't see any difference between a miracle and nature. Like the Ramban writes, a miracle is nature is a miracle that happens frequently, and a miracle is nature that happens infrequently. But that's yichidim. Nobody should disillusion themselves that they got there. It takes many, 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 many years of work. A lot of lazy people say, yeah, I got to that level. Yeah, right. You want to be in bed all day, that's what you think. Hashem doesn't help people who don't want to try. But comes Rav Dessler and writes, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa got to a level, when he told his daughter that the vinegar is going to burn, he didn't tell her a miracle is going to happen. He told her what's the difference. Vinegar, oil. Hashem said oil should burn. So he said same thing. To him, it wasn't that a miracle happened. Motzei Shabbat, he didn't go call his friend and say, you know, the miracle happened to me. We had vinegar and it burnt the whole Shabbat. It wasn't a miracle to him. That was normal to him. So the same God that said oil should burn, he's going to say vinegar should burn, no difference. So for a person who it's a miracle, ein somchim al hanes, he's not allowed to. But for somebody who it's not a nes, so he's not samech on anything. It's simple. That's the nature of the world. That's the world that he lives in. It's a very different world than we live in, but that's his. No, if that's the case, that's the way he answers that. If we take this yisod from Rav Dessler, we could say a bigger yisod. Like add on, not a bigger, nobody can say bigger than Rav Dessler in this generation, but the outcome of Rav Dessler's chidush is that nature only has control over somebody who sees nature as something that has the ability to have control. If I look at my surroundings and think that the natural way of the world working, as science calls it, has an element of control over the hemisphere that then nature has control over me. But if I look at my surroundings and see nothing, all I see is God, then at that point nature has no control over me. The laws of nature don't apply. Not only don't apply, it's nothing, it doesn't exist, it's non-existent. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa elevated himself to a point that he was above nature. The laws of nature didn't apply to him. It didn't apply because miracles happened to him. It didn't apply because he was above it. Nature only confines one who confines himself to it. He didn't confine himself to the laws of nature, and at that point nature has nothing above, nothing on him. No, if that's the case, so it's very simple. When the rabbi went and put his foot into the hole of the snake with the arud, he didn't endanger himself. If you live based on the laws of nature, so yeah, naturally a snake bites and can kill you. To him it was nothing. To him, snakes don't bite. Sins bite. Excuse me. Wow, today it's a criminal act to sneeze. I got to be careful. But anyway, yeah, you looked at as a terrorist. It's not a simple thing. If you're wearing a kippah and sneeze, that's a double crime. But anyway, one way or the other, and that's here to stay, by the way. That's the frightening thing. I once asked Chama Ovadia about putting on tefillin on airplanes. I'm not talking about when there's no choice and there's no other option. When you could arrange it in a way that you don't have to put on tefillin on the airplane. And he told me you shouldn't do it. He said, unless it's halal, you shouldn't do it. So I told him why. He said, imagine a Muslim guy was on the airplane sitting near you and he strapped himself in black wires. How would you feel? That's exactly what he told me. He told it to me in Hebrew. I'm saying it in English. And I never thought about it that way. He said, you got to think about other people around you the way they view you too. Not because of fear. Not because I'm embarrassed and almost proud. I'll walk up and down the aisles of a plane in my talis and tefillin. Because why make somebody else feel uncomfortable? It's just not right. So if there's no choice, so then talk to the staff, explain them, and do it in a way that doesn't make people uncomfortable. And you'd be surprised how airlines respect that. But otherwise, we're not looking for extra adventures that we don't need. But anyway, the rabbi didn't see snakes as something that kill. He saw sin as something that kill. He thought to himself, I have no sin, I have nothing, no sins, no death, so what's the problem? He put his foot. He didn't put his foot as a miracle. He put his foot because naturally that's the way it's going to be. It wasn't a question at all. It wasn't like, Hashem's going to make me a miracle because I'm a tzaddik. To him, that he lived above the laws of nature. Above the laws of nature, there's no issue at that point. It's a big chidush in halacha. No, if that's the case, so we could understand another Gemara. There's a Gemara in Chulin Daf Zayin Amud Bet that says that there was a machshefa. Machshefa is a witchcrafter. There is such a thing in Chazal. Chazal talk about it a lot, actually. The pasuk says, "Chol machsheva lo tchayeh." We kill witchcrafters al pi halacha in the times that there was a Sanhedrin. That means that there is such a thing called koach hatumah, and they have powers. The Gemara says a story that in Chulin Daf Zayin, that there was a machshefa that tried to harm Rabbi Chanina. She didn't like him, big rabbi. I can also explain you why. I don't know for sure on the Gemara, but in general they don't like rabbis because koach hakdusha is the opposite of koach hatumah, so that throws them off balance. So the holy people are the threat to them. So this witchcraft, witchcrafting only works with means. You can't do it without means. So she took some sort of sand or dust or whatever the Gemara says over there, and she wanted to put it around them, and she put it around, not she wanted to, she put it around them to do her witchcrafting, to do something bad to him. Rabbi Chanina looked at her, he felt it, he looked at her, and he said, Lo mistaya milsa, good luck to you, it's not going to work. You're not going to get anywhere with me. Why? Because Einod milvado. Hashem is the only thing, and He watches over me, and ain't going to happen. So the Gemara on that asks the question, what do you mean? Kishuf is something that the Torah talks about. It does work. Why is it called kishuf, kshafim? Shemakchishim pamalya shemala. Because they conflict God Himself, not God Himself, but pamalya shemala, the angels of heaven. Meaning they have a power. They have a power that they can even outpower the angels of heaven sometimes. So how did he tell her, I'm not scared? What do you mean not scared? The Gemara clearly said, we learn clear from the Pasuk. Why is it called Kishuf, for Machshefa? Because Makchishim Pamayat Shamala. They can cause denial to God's power in the world. That's how far it goes. So there's a lot of power that they have. Comes the Gemara and answers, Shani Rab Chanina, the Nafish Schute. The Nafisha Schute. Chanina is different. Why? Because he has many schuyot. He has tons of schuyot. Therefore what? Pamayat Shamala is also very big. A lot bigger than one person. So what's pshat in the whole thing? So there was a great rabbi named Rabbi Shlomo Avigdor Rabinovich Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. So in his sefer he asked this question, and he says, what does Makchishim Pamayat Shemala mean? He says it doesn't say Makchishim Mala. They are able to be Makchish Hashem. Makchishim Pamayat Shemala. Swarms of angels that God created, they could cause troubles with. There's a big difference, he says. What? That a person can get higher than an angel. And that's our link to this week's Parashat. Yaakov sends Malachim. How is Yaakov allowed to utilize the services of Malachim? Based on what? It's very simple, based on what? Avutna writes, because Yaakov was an Adam HaShalem. He was a whole person. An Adam HaShalem is a lot greater than a Malach. Adarabah, the Malachim were obligated to work for him. He was able to send them as messengers. A person's greater than an angel. It's not the... Today we tell somebody that does us a favor, you're such an angel. That's not a compliment. That's one of the greatest insults you can tell somebody. Honestly, to tell somebody that he's a donkey is less of an insult than that. At least a donkey could be productive. An angel's just a robot. If you made a human into a robot, then what's left? Oy vavoy. But that's because we talk before we think. If we would think before we talk, we wouldn't use all this terminology that makes no sense intellectually. But anyway, yeah, Yaakov was able to send angels. Why? Because a man is greater than an angel. A lot greater than an angel. So comes up Shlomo Avigdor Rabinovich and says in his sefer, an unbelievable pshat, he says, there's Pamayat Shel Mala, and then there's something higher than that. Mala. Mala is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kishuf has power on Pamayat Shel Mala. But somebody who elevated himself to a level that's higher than Pamayat Shel Mala, Kishuf has no power over him anymore. Like we spoke about, Rivka told Yaakov, I like you, Latcha Beni. She was already above the level of anybody being able to influence her with anything. Memele, he was able to tell her with full confidence that there's no power. Because he was living in a world of Mala, not in a world of Pamayat Shel Mala. What is it? So what was the Gemara's answer? But comes the Gemara and says, Kishuf gets power from different things in nature. The sun, astrology, this, that, there's all different things. I'm not here to give a course on Kishuf. I definitely don't want to encourage it. So, it's an Isur D'Oraita. But when somebody elevates himself above nature, so by default, Kishuf has no power over it. If the whole power of Kishuf is things that are natural, if you're above nature, it has no power. Chazal say, if somebody wants to protect himself from Ayin Hara, he should say, Anami Zaradi Yosef Ka'atena Delo Shalta Be'ina Bisha. I'm from the children of Yosef HaTzadik, that Ayin Hara has no power over me. What do you mean? The Gemara clearly says that Ayin Hara has a lot of power. We once said it 3 shiurim about it. To the extreme, that the Gemara says that of every 100 people that die, 99 is Mishum Ayin Hara. So which one is it? The answer is it doesn't contradict. There is 1% that's Anami Zaradi Yosef Ka'atena that live in Mala, higher than Pamayat Shel Mala, and on them, Ayin Hara makes no difference. Because even in that, it's also something that goes by the rules and the laws of nature. No, unbelievable pshat. Im kenim advarim, let's take it further, we'll come out with something nice. Rav Bloch, in his sefer called Shiurei Da'at, Chelik Aleph, from Amud Kuf Yud Aleph and on, quotes the Zohar Kadosh in Truma. The Zohar Kadosh writes in Truma, "Ubegin nechad bra kudsha b'richu alma." And with this, that when Hashem created the world, istakel ba be'oraita ubara alma. He looked in the Torah and he created the world from the Torah. Meaning the Torah was the blueprint of the world. Comes Rav Bloch in the Sefer and writes, it comes to teach us that Hashem created all the elements of nature based on what it says already in the Torah. It wasn't a new creation. It was something that already existed in the Torah. He took the power out of the Torah and put that power into the power of nature. No. Comes Rav Yaakov and says, why is this so important to understand? So he gives a few examples. Example number one, he says, is that naturally a person thinks that if he gives away part of his money, he's going to have less money. Right? If I have $20 in my pocket now and I give it to you, so now I have zero. That's the way we all think. The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says, and if you don't believe this, then you're not Apikoros Al Pi Halacha. It's a pasuk in the Torah, no mefarshim, no nothing, straight pasuk. The Torah says, Ki biglal hadavar hazeh, because this is that we give, tzedakah, Yivarcha Hashem Elokecha, Hashem's going to bless you, b'chol ma'asecha, b'chol mishlach yadecha, and everything you do and anything you touch. If you don't believe that, you're Apikoros Al Pi Halacha. Literally not Apikoros. Of course, within the guidelines of Hilchot Tzedakah. Wait a second. Naturally, anybody here studied accounting, I think you know that there's a balance sheet, a plus and a minus. So when you take money out, you have less money. Oh, that's the way it works, I think. That's what my accountant tells me all the time, at least. In reality, the Torah says, no, that's not the way it works. Dafka, because of this, you're not going to be missing anything. Just the opposite. You're going to have so much more. I had an unbelievable story this week. It sounds simple, but if you think about it to the depth, you'll appreciate what a brilliant story this is. There's a young man in Lake with a college student who called me 2 years ago about, I send him money every week, Baruch Hashem, to help him out a little bit. And he asked me for permission for something. See how straight these people are. It's unreal. Halavai, we should merit to be 1% of how straight they are. He says, I know you give me money, I should have money for my kids and for food and tuition. But deep down, I feel very bad. My wife works so hard. We have 7 children. By now, he already has 9. But then he had 7. Kain Yilbu. And he says, and she works so hard and she takes care of them. I'm on koil all day. I do nothing in the house. I want to buy her a gift. I don't have $1 to my name. Would you be makpid, meaning would it bother you if I put aside $5 or $10 a week to, well, I'll save up, I'll have a few $100s and I'll buy her some sort of fake jewelry, but something to show her appreciation for what she does. First of all, Stam shows what a mensch is, right? The guy's living off of dollars. Those $5 or $10 means one less piece of food that he's going to allow himself to eat that week. That's how much he loves and cares about his wife. That alone is a story to learn from. But it gets much greater. It's unreal. I told him, of course, what's the question? Not only that, I'll give you money. He says, no. If you give me money now, that came easy. That's not. She works hard, I'm going to work on myself, I'm going to do what I have to do. That should be something meaningful. This happened about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. It was before Elul. It was Elul. So now in Kislev, so 2 years and 2 months. I told him, of course, you can do whatever you want. I give you the money for you to do whatever you want. You're telling I should mind it's my business what you do with the money. I want to help you. It's my schus to help you. That's it. You do whatever you want with it. He's been doing this. He's been putting aside $10 a week. Do a rough mathematical calculation. He approximately saved up a little over $1,000. $1,200. And he goes to his wife this week. It was on Tuesday afternoon. And he tells his wife on Tuesday, I hid something from you for the past 2 years. I was saving up money. I have $1,200 or whatever dollars. I don't know anything about jewelry, so I'm not going to surprise you with something that you don't want. It's not something that I can afford to do every day. Here's the money, and go buy yourself jewelry. Of course, she's as touched as could be. She didn't see that coming. She's as happy as could be in the world. And she's going. And on the way to the jewelry store, one of her friends calls her up and is venting to her about all her problems in life. And one of the problems in life is that she has a kid that's in school and they didn't pay tuition in a while because they didn't have money because of COVID and all the trouble. And it's Hanukkah time. And Hanukkah is vacation. And in some of these schools, which I'm sorry to say this, but this is like Hitler behavior, won't take the kid back unless the tuition's paid up. Now, if the parents are busy flying to Cancun and here and there and driving fancy cars, then they're right. If your kid's tuition is less important than the rims on your car, then your kid doesn't deserve a Jewish school. Not because it's the kid's fault, because the parents' fault to kill the kid. But people that are broke in a coal town, you're fighting with them over money when they don't have it, it's a real rishus. A real rishus. And all the principles hate me because I say it openly. They all have long lives because they never created a hell big enough for these people. There's no other way to say it. There's just nothing created big enough for them. A guy is a koil guy struggling to pay his bill. I'm not going to take your kid back unless you give me the $5,000 tuition that I ripped you off on in the first place. What? It makes no sense. It's funny how they also charge tuition for the Zoom classes when in Lakewood we don't have an internet, so there is no Zoom. For the Zoom classes that never happened. And the government, they paid them for it. And the tablets that they got to give the kids that they never gave because the kids don't have tablets in Lakewood. And. Whatever, I'm down the Kavschus. Maybe they're all high on something. They don't know what's going on. But one way or the other. Her friend's venting. She's scared what's going to be after Hanukkah vacation. Her daughter's not going to be allowed back to school. And she didn't mean to ask her friend for help or anything because she knows her friend's in the same situation. She was just venting. Like Chazal say, Da'aga belev ish v'sichena. She got it off her chest. And the friend says, do you think $1,200 would help you? And she says, what do you mean? Yeah. First of all, no. I owe a lot more than that. But number two, you don't have money. Listen to this. He said, okay, I tried. Hangs up. The lady makes a U-turn. Instead of going to the jewelry store, goes to this girl's school. Walks into the administrator's office and tells him these words. My husband saved up for 26 months, $10 a week, that I should be able to buy my first piece of jewelry in who knows how many years of marriage. Here's the money. Promise me this girl's going to come back after Hanukkah. The administrator, as much as he has a cold heart, this you can't stand. You can't, there's a limit. And he said, it's fine. He took the money, but that's the crazy part. You would think at least that much he would have not done. He took the money. But Hashem doesn't forget the good deeds of somebody. She leaves the place, and now she's thinking in her mind, this is what her husband told me the story on Tuesday. How am I going to break this news to my husband? He's going to come home by supper, waiting, all excited to see my new piece of jewelry. And what am I going to show him exactly? I'm going to tell him you saved up money for 2.5 years and I gave it away? It's crazy. It's wild. It's not normal. Besides, it's probably wrong. She doesn't know. And Hashem sees this lady's dilemma. Look what Sitkonia's dilemmas are. Some people, they're getting all upset that their Gucci 22 bag didn't come in on time. And other people, this is what their dilemmas in life are. This administrator was blown away. He has a Yiddish heart. And he picks up the phone, and he thinks he's going to use this story as a fundraising pitch. And he calls up one of his big donors to tell him the story. Didn't work out so well for the administrator. He got it over the head. Guy yelled at him, you lowlife, you took the money, what are you, crazy, this, that, the other. But he also asked for the name of the lady that gave him the money. And within less than 2 hours, he had an extremely expensive piece of jewelry delivered to her as a gift with a note saying, nobody loses from doing the right thing. Way more than the $1,200 that she had. Way, way, way. Multiply it many times over. That's the koyach of somebody who lives me'ala teva, but that's also the koyach of a simple Yiddish mama, a Jewish mother who has simple emuna pshuta. Now, I'm not saying what she did was right, by the way. Al pi halacha, she was wrong. But afal pikein, Hashem saw that she was living at such a high level that she was, like what we said, this palmayasha mala and mala. You're living in mala. Mala already doesn't fit they have a different way of doing things. By them, things work out differently. By mala, it works out differently. If you let me go overtime, because now my hour is over. I came late, I took advantage. Then you'll get a couple of good stories. And I don't get insulted whoever has to go and has babysitters and this and that. Please leave. I'm not the sensitive type exactly. I'll tell you a story that looks bad for me, but if somebody will get chizuk out of it, so I don't care. It's an amazing story. Happened a few years ago. I have a close friend. I purposely am not going to give too much information just because I don't know if I didn't ask him permission if I could give, not that I think he would care, but whatever. Who's a big Baal Tzedakah and a successful individual. But beyond that, he's my close friend. It's a lot more important. He's more than a brother, you know, they say more than a brother. And there's such a musik in Chazal, more than a brother. That's not, in the Rishonim it's brought down what later on philosophers took credit for, but it's not it doesn't come from the Goyim, it comes from the Rishonim, that friends are family that you can choose. We learn that from Pasuk, Tov Shechen Tov Me'ach Rachok. A good neighbor is better than a far brother. No, so I have this close friend. One day he calls me, and he calls me a lot, we speak all the time. Writes to me, or whatever it is, tells me, his father just died. Young. His father wasn't well, whatever, but his father died young. He's not alive. No, he's in one state, the father was here in New York, and now we have to make arrangements. He says, can you make the arrangements for the funeral for me? So I said, sure. Where do you want him buried in America, in Israel? Tell me what you want, I'll do everything for you. He tells me, I want him buried in Israel, and I want him buried in a good plot, a good place. He wants him buried in a good place, so I said, no problem, let me make some calls. It's nighttime. At night it's much harder, because the American Chevra Kadishas and that, you know, Hashem, they work around the clock, unfortunately, but still, you know, to get things done, it's harder. Make phone calls, I had a lot of siyat d'shmaya, everybody picks up right away, and they're cooperative, and that. And I tell them, there's a person that's important to me, it has to be a good plot and a good place. We agree on a place, we agree on everything, and we set everything up. Now we set it up in a way, there are family members that live in America, and there are family members that live in Israel. So we set it up in a way that the family that lives in America want to be able to say goodbye. So we're going to make a funeral in the airport before they send the body off in cargo. Then the son is going to fly with the wife to Israel together with the body. There'll be another funeral in Israel, and they'll bury the body in Israel. Then they'll come back here to sit shiva. It's a very common thing done. You should never know, but that's the way it's very commonly done that way. No, I drive from wherever I was to the airport, knowing he's flying in from where he lives to his father, to his mother or whatever. His father's not alive, but to tomorrow's proceedings. I pick him up from the airport, see the pain in his eyes. Hashem Yerachim, nobody should ever have to deal with things like this. We should deal with it when we're 100 and our parents are 120, but not before that. And I take him, I try to be mechazik him whatever I could, but what's there to say in such a situation? What's there to say? No. I drop him off at the family, and I felt it wasn't appropriate for me to go in there. You know, the family needs their own time in such situations. I stayed in my car. I don't think he knows until today. I hope he doesn't listen to these classes. That night I slept in the car, outside the house, because I was scared in case he's going to need me, I should be there. So I was scared to go anywhere. You know, early in the morning, he calls me, everything arranged. Yeah, I said, everything's exactly on schedule. I'll pick you up, we'll go to the airport, we'll do the thing, I'll say a few words, we'll do the minhag, you'll go onto the flight, you'll fly to Israel with your mother, and when you come back, I'll pick you up from the airport when you get back. Thank you, I have no words. I said, don't thank me. There's no thank you. It's called chesed shel emet. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says thank you to us. I take it, everything works as planned in a very respectable way. I felt that to drop him off by the door of an airport, when he has to wait still an hour and a half for the flight at least, alone with his mother, that are both onenim still up yalacha because they didn't bury their loved one, it's not right. That's not the way a Jew behaves. At least if they need something, there should be somebody there to help them, especially if they never dealt with tragedy before. They don't know what these things are about. So instead of taking them to the door of the airport, I parked the car and walked with them upstairs to the check-in of the airport. And they both go to check in, and he turns around and he gives me that look of like, so you're leaving me here? And I'm like, okay. I stick my hand into one pocket where I normally keep my passport, and yeah, there's a passport, Baruch Hashem. I stick my hand into my other pocket to see if there's a wallet. That's the next thing you need, right? You have to be able to buy a ticket. There's no wallet. I forgot my wallet at home. I rushed so fast to get out to pick him up in the airport on time, whatever. I left my wallet at home. I said, okay, maybe at least some cash, something. I had $1.16. That was the financial situation. In today's digital world, the guys that know how to use it, Apple Pay, this Pay, that Pay, there's all different ways of doing things. I don't know why, I was so confused and so torn. Should I go with him, should I not? Nothing came to mind. My brain went blank. Not my credit card number, not my this, not who to call, I could have called my travel agent and told him I'll pay when I get back. There was 1,000 ways I could have worked things out. Blank, my mind is blank. Nothing's coming to mind. The only thing that came to mind was, the Yid needs you, he needs you to go to Eretz Yisrael with him, you're going. And I'm a spoiled brat, I like flying first class. So you're going first class. He goes up, he already bought tickets, the Chav Kaddish arranged it for him first class ticket, him and his mother. They go up, they check in, I'm standing right behind, and I decide I'm going. And I walk up to the check-in. I have no ticket. I hand them the passport. The lady says, I don't see a reservation. I said, I know, that's because I don't have one. So she tells me, okay, do you want me to make you one on the, you got to go to that? I said, I can't go to desks. Their parent, she just lost her husband, he just lost her father. Right here, right now. She puts in the information, she does me the favor, that much she was willing to do. Calls some help over that knows how to do that. Gives me a number, a dollar amount. Now what am I supposed to tell her? I owe you one. It's not going to work. There's a guy behind me who's getting frustrated. It's taking some time. He says, what's going on here? I said, honestly, I forgot my credit card at home, and I don't remember the number, and my mind is blank right now, and I got to go to Israel right now. So he says, they're available? I said, yeah. He sticks out his credit card. He says, swipe. I don't know the guy. I don't know his name. I don't know anything. So I look at him. I say, what's your name? When I get back, I'll pay you back right away. I'll send you the money. Or even from Israel, I'll call somebody in my family, my wife, I'll tell somebody to send you money. He says, are you crazy? I'm going to give up on a mitzvah of burying somebody for a few $1,000s? Are you crazy? Something's wrong with you? He looks at me like I'm the crazy one. When I look at the boarding passes they gave me and the ticket number, I realized an interesting thing. They got me a one-way ticket. Now, I'm not saying this in a bad way. This guy said he made a right judgment call. Honestly, I probably would have done the same thing. First, let's get him there. Now, he's not poor, right? Obviously, so when he's in Israel, his head will be clear. He'll call his family, he'll get his credit. They'll book him a ticket. They'll do what they got to do. Right now, let me bail him out. Then we'll see what's next. I come there to Israel. We do what we got to do. We do a burial, and they plan on flying back the same day, like a few hours later. I don't even have a ticket back. Forget $1.06 in my pocket. And I decide I'm ready in Eretz Yisrael. I already called my wife to break her the news. I forgot to tell you I went to Israel. Yeah, it went by okay. Everything was fine. And it's a matter of habit. When you get used to things like that, that's no big deal. So let me stay 2 days, 3 days, get a few things done. Then I said, why only 2-3 days? At the end of the Shiva, who's going to say Kaddish? Who's going to make a thing? So let me stay make sure everything's done the right way. So I started the mitzvah, matchil b'mitzvah, omrim lo gmor. You have to finish. Now, once I'm in Israel, I have fans, family, big deal. I have access to everything. Besides, you call Amex, they ship you a card within a few hours, 24 hours max, anywhere in the world, especially if you're a good customer. So I wasn't worried. I was like, fine, I'll figure it out. Hashem has his ways. I'm in a house, they're waiting a couple hours just for the flight. Then I go with them in the taxi we hired a driver for the day, for the flight back, and I was going to get out of the taxi together with them, escort them to the airplane, and when they get to the airplane, then I'll go and figure out what I'm doing next. Whatever, I wasn't worried. I'll figure it out. I also have to figure out where I'm getting clothes from. There's a lot of technicalities. Fill-in, a lot of problems along the way. But I'm not worried, right? Jerusalem's a home away from home, we call it. The next nace happens. They go, they check in, they go to their flight, whatever it is. This guy, my friend, turns around to me and he says, my uncle met me here in Israel and he owed me some money. And he handed me an envelope. I didn't want to count it, but because I had no patience. But I'm scared it's over $10,000. You're not going to the U.S. for more than $10,000 in cash or that. So I don't want to take the risk. You count it, I trust you, and we'll figure it out when we come back to America. Suddenly I got money. Fat wad. No. Miracle number one. Now I say, let me go exchange $100 into shekels to get a taxi to go to Jerusalem to one of my family members so I could now get tefillin for tomorrow and see where I could buy clothes tonight and whatever else I got to do. I come downstairs. You got to wait online over there by Nesha. Now, unfortunately, the airport's dead, but in normal days, they give you a ticket. A taxi driver opens his window and he screams, Yaakov! I look in the window. I see a guy who used to come to my classes in Brooklyn. Turns out he made Aliyah, he became a taxi driver. Tells me, where are you going? I said, Yerushalayim. He goes out of his car, he asks the guy in charge, is it okay if I take him? I said, where's he going? Yerushalayim. The other drivers didn't mind. He said, sure, take him. He said, where in Yerushalayim are you going to? I said, Dad, I'm going to figure out on the way. I got to see, I have some legit. So he asks me, what do you mean? You don't know where you're going? You just landed from Israel? I said, no, I was already here all day. I already buried a body. Don't ask. It's been a long day. But now I have to figure out what's next. So he tells me, so what do you need? So he tells me, so what do you need? I tell him, I need clothes. I need a talis and tefillin. I need a place to stay. And I'm very finicky. I don't like staying in people's houses and bothering them. And that's not my style. I said, I'm going to make some calls. I'll figure everything out. It's no big deal. By the time you get to Jerusalem, I'll have an address. Don't worry about it if that's what you're worried about. He says, no, I want to help you. What do you mean? I came to your classes for years. I want to give you a hand. So I told him, give me a hand with what? He said, the Mamila Mall is open till late. Over there, they got a lot of American clothing stores. Little did he know the Gap and that doesn't really cut it for me. But okay, whatever. Tommy Hilfiger or whatever it is. So I have a good idea. Stay in the Waldorf. It's walking distance to Mamila. You'll go there. You'll get clothes. You'll do this. He's planning my life out for me. I told him, yeah, but the Waldorf might be $600-700 a night. Chazit, I could go to Tzedakah. I have other places I could stay. So he tells me, what are you talking about? The owner is my client. Hold on a second. Tick, 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 speed dial on his phone, on speaker. He gets the owner. Then, there's a new owner now. But then there was an owner, Jewish guy from Canada. Gets him on the phone. He tells him, my rabbi's here from New York, this, that. He says, how long does he want to stay for? A week? A gift from us. We're putting him up. Now I'm like, I don't even need the money. This is unreal. I come to the hotel. They accept me with such kavod melachim. I stayed there many times, but he must have warned everybody. Whoever doesn't treat him nice is dead. And, it was unreal. It was like a week that everybody's like bowing down. What can we do for you? What can we get you? I ate, I drank. At the end, I came to pay at least that part of it. I said, the boss said we're not allowed to take a penny from you. Unreal. The next miracle happens. I'm in the hotel. I call an uncle of mine who's so fair to ask him for tefillin. I said, maybe he has tefillin that he wrote. I could borrow for a week. He tells me, what do you need to borrow for? I said, what do you mean? So you don't remember you ordered for me tefillin for yourself, more muda? I said, yeah, but you told me it's going to take another year. He said, I finished it yesterday. I have my own tefillin. I said, unreal. I said, I'm coming to pick it up. He lives in Yerushalayim, it's not far away. So I'll take a taxi, I'll go pick it up. He says, you don't have to pick it up. I'll bring it to you, I have a car, I'll drop it off. Where are you? I tell him where I'm staying. He said, no problem. I said, by the way, once we're on the subject, maybe you got some clothes for 24 hours until I figure out what I'm doing about clothing? He said, clothes? You live in your own bubble. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you don't remember last time you were in Israel, you only wanted to take a carry-on back, you left clothes by grandma's house? I'll go to grandma, I'll pick up the clothes, I'll bring them to you. He said, and guess what? My wife washed them for you too. They're all fresh and beautifully pressed. And there I am, laying at night, in a beautiful suite in the Waldorf Astoria of Jerusalem, being fed room service on the house, with a brand new pair of Mudat Tefillin, a pocket full of money, and a bag full of gorgeous clothes that I own, that anyway had to get back to America. And I say to myself, and then there are people that don't believe in God? Unreal. Here's the ending of the story, by the way. It was also funny. The next day, I called the guy to tell him how much money was there, because money's money, we don't play games. So I called him on WhatsApp. I said, it was X amount of dollars, I'll get back, I'll give it to you, or if you want to send you a wire. He tells me neither. I said, I don't take gifts, you know me. He says, no, I want you to give out charity, Lilu Nishmat, my father. I gave out the entire amount of money that he had to charity. I came back to the US with the same $1.06 that I left the US. Does God run the world? Everything was either a ride or this or that, without asking for one favor. I don't take favors. I don't ask for favors against my nature. Hashem just lined everything up for me in the most perfect way that could be. This night's a speech, they come pick me up. The next night's that, they go. Every time something else. I want to rent a car. I go into the rental. I see an American guy that I know. He says, why would you rent a car? I'm going to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. I'll take you in my car. One after another. I come back to the airport. I stick my hand in my pocket. I'm like, passport, $1.06, and a bag of clothes, and tefillin. Oh, and the ticket the way back was also a miracle, by the way. A travel agent randomly called me, who's a friend, who I used a lot, and he tells me, you have a credit balance by me. So I said, what do you mean? He said, I took points out of your account once for a customer, and I never squared it up with you. How do you want me to pay you? I said, how about a one-way ticket back to America? He said, you got a deal. So that was that also. That's when you don't live with pamayashel mala. If you're willing to go mala for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, mala, Kishuf has no power over. It's a big yesod in life. But don't disillusion yourselves. I don't live in mala and neither do you. You have to get to very high levels for that and many, many years of work. Hashem should help. We should be zocher one day, Taka, to get there. That would be very nice. But this rule we learn again. Comes our bloch and right. And I think we'll conclude with this. And then we'll answer our questions and conclude. Our bloch writes, what does it say? We read in Kriyat Shema. Hishamu lachem, Hashem warns you. Be careful. Pen yiftel avchem, saltem avatem lakim achim. You'll be an idol worshiper. If somebody could distribute these, just that I do my weekly shtadlus. The kids, be careful that you shouldn't do sins. You shouldn't do avodah zarah, whatever. Why? V'charaf Hashem bachem. Hashem's going to be upset. V'atzal et hashamayim v'lo yeh matar. There won't be rain. V'adama lo titen yevula, and the crops won't grow. It's going to be tzoros b'kitzur. Wait a second. I was taught in school that it rains when there's clouds and there's certain factors that cause it to rain. And that's why certain areas in the world have less rain, certain areas it rains much more, certain years it rains less. Even the forecasters tell me tomorrow, today on your phone you could see by the hour, maybe soon it's going to be by the minute even. In this zip code, in this location, at 2 o'clock, 60% chance, at 3 o'clock, 20% chance. That's the way I know the world. Hashem doesn't know the world that way. Hashem says rain has nothing to do with clouds and nothing to do with the forecast and nothing to do with anything. If that day, Misham Bidvar Hashem Shamayim Nasu and Shamayim, they decide it's going to rain, so it's going to rain. And if V'charach Af Hashem Bachem, Hashem's upset, there could be all the clouds in the world and all the hurricane threats and everything, and it's not going to rain. Comes our Baruch and writes, that's just another example to show that Teva has nothing to do with Teva. There is no such thing as Teva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put in the Torah, what's the criteria of rain? That's why the Gemara says, Gadol Yom HaGshamim Ki Yom Ktirat HaMetim. It's such a great day when it rains. Because if it rains, that means HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing, I'm happy with the world. We get upset when it rains. It's raining outside. Adarav, the Gemara says, Gadol Yom HaGshamim. It's such a great day. Ki Yom Ktirat HaMetim. What a blessing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing the world, I'm happy with you. And Rav continues his yisod in a much bigger way. He says, we know a lot of examples that miracles happened historically, or what we view as miracles, and we always wonder how they happened. He said, we got it all wrong. He said, Avraham Avinu was thrown into the fire. He walked out. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were thrown into the fire. They walked out. Daniel was thrown into Guva Arayot, into the lion's den. He walked out. And the list goes on and on. It goes all the way down to recent history. I'm saying the Chaim HaKadosh was thrown into the lion's den. There are many. It's not like it's such a foreign concept. He says, we see it as Hashem made them a miracle. He said, that's because we're living still in Pamaya Shemala, in the laws of nature. But Be'etzim, if we'll grow spiritually, it won't be like that. What's really going to happen is, we're going to realize that this is not a miracle at all. Hashem made fire. Sometimes he wants fire to burn, sometimes he doesn't. It goes based on the guidelines of the Torah. By Avraham Avinu, he was doing Kiddush Hashem. He didn't want the fire to burn. By other cases, when we heard of a fire that killed people, he wanted the fire to burn. That's it. That's the whole thing. Fire on its own doesn't burn. The Dvar Hashem burns. If Hashem decided fire should burn, then it burns. And if not, it doesn't burn. And that's what it says in the Pasuk in Yeshaya, Perek Mem Gimel, Pasuk Bet, Ki ta'avor b'mayim, when you go through water, Itcha ani, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm with you. U'banaharot lo yishtefucha. And in the rivers, you won't be able to get drowned. Ki telech b'mo esh, when you'll walk through fire, lo tikaveh, you won't get burned. V'lehava lo tivarbach, and even big flames won't be able to burn you. What's the Pasuk saying? Hashem's telling a Jew, I limited the power of nature. And as long as Itcha ani, you're walking with me, nature has no power over you. The rules are different. The rules don't apply to you. If you don't go by that, walk with me, then the rules apply to you already. That's a different story. But as long as you're walking with me, the rules don't apply. And that's not a nes, based on what we said earlier. That is the teva of the world. That's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. People always say, why do big rabbis have all these miracles and I don't? Big rabbis don't have any miracles. Big rabbis and big rabbis is not a title, it's a spiritual level. Don't live in the same hemisphere as we do, so the laws of nature don't apply to them, and as a result, to us it looks like miracles. To them it's very simple. When the Baba Sali told his driver never to fill up gas and just to drive, it wasn't because he thought he would have a miracle. He didn't see the connection between gas and a car driving. He lived above that. He just didn't get what the connection was. What, gas for what? Just go, you're wasting my time. And it wasn't once or twice. I know he's driving, he's still alive. Hashem should give him a long life. And he also needs one now. He testifies that there were times that 2.5 months straight he didn't fill up gas. He drove the Baba Sali at all hours of the day and night to all different places in the world, in Israel. It's a pretty good deal. You don't need Tesla, you don't need that. Gas free. That was the koch. What does it say in Tehillim? And it's a davar b'ito matov. That's the gift I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you 2 gifts tonight. The Segulot of Chanukah a little bit. So this one's Sephardi, but it only has one. The V'yinom is very important, especially this year. This one has more in it, but the Birkat HaMazon at the end, be aware, is Ashkenaz. So if you're not Ashkenaz, it's not going to be helpful to you. So you'll take one of each before you leave. But Chazal say, the rabbis teach us, it's put down in many Sfarim, that if you say every day after that Adlakat Nerot Chanukah, it's brought down in 2 versions, if it should be in front of the candles, or it doesn't have to be in front of the candles, but at least every night of Chanukah, V'noam and Yoshev V'set Elyon 7 times, each night, that Muftach lo, guaranteed that no harm could happen to him that year. And there's a Lashon in another one of the Sfarim, V'chol Oivav noflim tachtav, his enemies will fall under him, and very strong Lashonot in Chazal. So Dafka now, it's a Shat Magifa on many fronts. COVID's the easiest to them. Anti-Semitism, Democrats, all this craziness. So Dafka now, V'inoam protects us. So listen to this, how well it fits with our theme. Our Bloch writes, what are we saying V'inoam? Lo tu'nei lecha ra'a, no harm could happen to you. V'nega, no illness. Yikrav bo alecha, will even get close to your dwellings, to your house. No social distancing, unbelievable. Tili. V'nega lo yikrav bo alecha. COVID's going to stay away. Why? Al shachal v'feten tidroch, tilmos kefil v'tanin, ki vi chashak v'afalateo. If your cheshek is ki vi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you look up to me. If you're walking with me, lo tunei lecha ra'a, nothing can happen. And if something does happen, then a person has to do a cheshbon nefesh. That means he's not living with emunah. He's not living with Hashem. Lo arud memit, ela achet memit. And those are frightening words because I'm not saying it to you, I'm saying it to myself. If that's the case, let's go back. What did we say? Reuven went and said, we're not going to kill our brother, we're going to throw him into a pit. Rashi, Chazal learned out, the Gemara learned out. It was Maimen, Bo Nechashim V'Akavim Yeshva. So what did he gain? We're not going to kill him, so we'll throw him in so the snakes should kill him. Reuven understood snakes don't kill. Sins kill. And Reuven knew deep down that his brother didn't have a sin. And if his brother didn't have a sin, nothing's going to happen to him. So he didn't endanger him. He actually put him in the safest place. Comes the Gemara and puts that memra right after that you shouldn't light the candles higher than 20 amot. Why don't you light candles higher than 20 amot? The Gemara says, because you can't see it. What can't you see? The Nes of Chanukah. Which Nes of Chanukah? That God took oil and made it light for as long as he wanted to, which happened to have been 8 days. We asked, how were the Chachamim allowed to divide the oil? The Chachamim lived in Mala, not in Palmayasha Mala, so they weren't relying on a Nes. If they were relying on a Nes, they wouldn't be allowed to do it. But they weren't relying on a Nes. What's the proof that it has to be that way, Al Pi Halacha, by the way? Because Al Pi Halacha, you're not allowed to make a blessing on oil that comes from a miracle. So if they were able to make a blessing on lighting the candle of the menorah and get a mitzvah for it, it must be. It's not considered even halachically a miracle. To them it was natural. It was a no-brainer. Comes to Beit Yosef and says that's why they had 8 nights of a thing. Because they lived in Mala. And that's why the Maharal says Chanukah's 8, because 8 is above nature. Nature is the 7 days of creation. Anything that's above 7, 8, is already, doesn't go by the rules of nature. They weren't bound, confined to those rules. Comes the Gemara and says, Memra number 1, you lit your candles too high. You can't see them. You can't relate to the idea that you could also be Mala. Pasul, you missed the whole point of Chanukah. You defeated the purpose. Number 2, what's my proof to that? That we put Yosef into a pit and that wasn't considered putting him to death. That was considered protecting him. Because scorpions can't kill if you live above nature. Scorpions can only kill if you live within the realms of nature. Unbelievable. And that's why it's called Vayishma Reuven Vayatzileyu Mi'adam. The Torah calls it, he saved them. He saved them. He put him into a pit with snakes. That's not saving him in my world. That's called torturing him. Vayatzileu is because at that point, that's saving him. Because if he had no sin, he lives in Mala, it's above Palmayasha Mala, and there's nothing that can harm him. That's if we continue the Yisod, there's no end. You know, you can continue this idea, an unbelievable thing. But we conclude with this saying. The Gemara says, Rosh Hashanah Daf Yudchet. And from this I want you to take big chizuk. Malchut Yavan will gozer shmad on Klal Yisrael. What was shmad? What's shmad? Gzerat hashmad. We know gzerat hashmad. What's gozer? They shouldn't be maskil shem shamayim. If you look at the 3 things that they were gozer on 4, Shabbat, Milah, kitvu lachem hakeren hashor, ein lachem chelek be'elokei Yisrael. Shem shamayim shouldn't be mentioned. That was there. Because they knew as long as shem shamayim is mentioned, Jews can get to Mala. Mala, there's no... By the way, we forgot to say, that's why Matityahu was allowed to go to war. Why is it not suicide? He said the Chashmonaim are coming with Teva, nature. I'm coming with Mala, above nature. There's no fight at all. I won before I started. Adarabah, the question is, how could it be that part of his family got killed? That's the question. The question is not how he won. And that's why when the Gemara says, Mai Chanukah, it doesn't even make a mention of it. There's no mention of the war in the Gemara. When it talks about Chanukah. Big deal. Of course he was going to win. He was holding in a different... It wasn't an even playing field at all. It was like a nuclear bomb against a pistol. The quantity doesn't make a difference. God's decision made a difference. And Matityahu knew God's decisions with him. But Shmad was, they shouldn't use that idea. Comes the Gemara and says, when the Chashmonaim won, they made a takana. If there was such a big miracle in today's generation, what would you think the rabbis would talk about? Tzniut, this, that, I don't know what, Lashon Hara, which are all important things. No, they didn't talk about any of that. And Am Yisrael at that point was doing a lot of sins. They should have spoken about all those things. What was the takana that they made? That they should be maskir shem shamayim everywhere. Even when you write a contract, which in today's world we'll call it money, dollar bills, right? There's no value to currency. Currency is a contract that the government has money in the Federal Reserves against it. You also have to write Shem Shamayim. And they would write, had they count the years, it's this year from Yochanan Kohen Gadol. That's how they started counting the years, from the miracle of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. That's what they took out of the whole Hanukkah? Right? A lot of people don't understand this now. The answer is yeah, based on the way we just explained it in the past hour and a half. That is the whole Hanukkah. To elevate yourself from Pamayasha Mala to Mala. They said the more you maskir Shem Shamayim, the more you're a person of Mala, the closer you get to Mala. And that's the most important thing, and everything will follow. And then all the stars line up afterwards. Everything works out. That's why Yisrael is Me'al HaMazal. In a practical element, how does a person get to Mala? 2 words, Mesirut Nefesh. The more you're willing to sacrifice for Hashem, the more Hashem sees that you want to be above the rules of nature. The rule of nature is a person self-centered. We're egocentric. That's naturally the way Hashem created people. And it was done deliberately so. Not as a bad thing and not as a test. If a person wouldn't be egocentric, he would die of starvation in 2 minutes because he wouldn't care for himself. And that's why the Torah gives a mitzvah, to care for yourself. Physically, emotionally, mentally, in every way. It's a mitzvah. 2 people go to a clothing store. One person buys shoes and wasted $500, and the other person bought 5 shoes and did a $500 Kiddush Hashem. The only difference is, one person went in and said, Hashem, thank you for giving me money to buy nice shoes, and I daven that I should always have. And he made a Kiddush Hashem to himself, not to the goy, to himself. And I acknowledged the source of where his abilities of life are and where his abilities are going to continue from, and the other one went for himself. So one did a mitzvah of taking care of himself, and the other one was just an idiot, wasted his money. That's really the difference. That's why they wouldn't taken this. Hey, if you many Sfarim bring down, Ari was one of the first that I think brought it down clearly. That the first half an hour, which is the Zman Mitzvah, V'adakat Ner Chanukah, it's Zman Amsugal Yishuot, to the point that there's nuschaot in different Sifrei Kabbalah in more recent years, that the gates of heaven are open more than Shat Ne'ilah even. Even Shat Ne'ilah is not like that. It's such a power that there's no way to... I don't even know if there's words that you could put it into. Whatever. It has unbelievable power. Ad kedei kach, just the istaklut al haneyot, just looking at the Hanukkah candles makes a person holier. Just seeing it. I know mothers that, holy Jewish mothers, that instead of wasting the kids' time with dreidel games, for 5 minutes a nice thing, the minhag, but beyond that it's just stupid. They take their kids around town to show them all the Chanukiot, all the menorahs lit in the windows. Why is that such a beautiful thing? Because in Fana'achad there's such a thing called Birkat HaRoeh, that you make a blessing on seeing it. That means it's Kedusha to each ner v'ner. And we don't know which person had better kavanot and was on a higher level in his Adlakat Nerot. If you saw 100 Chanukiot that night, your neshama became 100 times holier. My mother, when I was a child, used to drive us around for 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes. Just to see the count. She used to call it counting menorahs. Seeing menorahs gets boring. Counting is already, keeps you busy, at least those days. It's a very, very big thing. Why? Okay, so you lit some candles, big deal. It costs $20 today, you buy ready-made candles, you unscrew it, you put it down, you light it. So I spent $20, I lit a fire. Now suddenly all the gates of heaven open for me. It was a magic trick. What happened to all the work that a person has to put in life? Of course, it doesn't mean kipshuto. You lit candles, congratulations. God could do without your candles too, by the way. It's only a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, it's not even a mitzvah d'Oraita. More than that, it's not even brought down in Tanakh. Purim was the last mitzvah that's brought down in Tanakh. After that, they stopped. Nothing else is part of Tanakh. Hanukkah is not part of Tanakh. So what?
Why is Hanukkah and Purim the only one?
It's an argument of Hanukkah. Purim, for sure. Hanukkah, maybe. But that's because we did it. We created the holiday. So what we create stays. What Hashem gave us, we don't need anymore. That's a good question. That's the answer. But it's only mitzvah. So what's the point? When a person lights the candle of Hanukkah, he's telling Hashem, now I'm taking myself and I'm making myself a person of Mala. I don't believe in the rules of nature anymore. I'm past that. Mala means you're higher than even the angels. When you pray and your prayer doesn't work, it's because the Satan, who's an angel, stops it. If you became a Jew of Mala, you're above the Satan. If you're on top of him, he can't stop it. Very simple. That's why you have a direct line to Kisei HaKavod. That's why in Kabbalah it's brought down that it's a higher level, even than Nihila. Because even in Nihila, it's Bein HaShmashot, Safek Yom, Safek Laila, so the Satan might sneak in a little bit. Now, he could sneak in all he wants. He could be there, but you're above him. How far does it go? Rav Melech Biderman ends off with the conclusion that's the kill of all kills. We know Chazal say God doesn't rest lower than 10 tefachim. The Shekhinah doesn't go down below 10 tefachim. The mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is to light it below 10 tefachim, between 3 and 10. What do you mean? As long as we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the rules of nature, yeah, the Shekhinah doesn't go down. Comes on Shem and says, but at the moment that you're lighting Nerot Chanukah, you're already a Jew of Mala. A Jew of Mala, but I go down below 10 also. Over there, nothing applies anymore. Everything changes. So, Rabotai, I'm giving you good advice. This has nothing to do with COVID or social distancing or not. I'm a very big fan of going to some Hanukkah parties when it comes to the family element of it. Last week I didn't come to say a shiur, even though it was a Goyish holiday, because I'm a big fan of respecting family-oriented things. It's very important. Family values we're losing today, and we have to strengthen them as much as we can. But we also have to know where to put the limits, because there's no end to that, right? You can go visit your aunts and uncles and cousins and that, and be busy with that 24 hours a day for the rest of your life. So you have to know how to put boundaries. So 1 or 2 days to go to 1 or 2 parties is a very nice thing, very important thing also. It's a beautiful thing to do. But beyond that, why would you be so stupid? You have the opportunity of your lifetime. It's unreal. You have such an opportunity. According to the way the Gdolim are talking now, this is probably the last Hanukkah that we're going to have, except if we hold that we have Hanukkah when Mashiach comes. And I've never said such a statement before in my life, just for the record. You can go listen to all my recordings. There's a lot of thousands of them. Good luck. We're beyond Yemot HaMashiach. We're already through all the cycles. Kalu kol hakitzim, like the Gemara says. As clear as day. It's not, you have to be blind. I don't even feel the need to prove it, because if you don't see it, then it's a waste of time to even talk about it. So Adarabah, Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving us an opportunity that even the Pshutei Am, even a Jew that's below Asara, could be a Jew of Mala instantly. So why would you lose that? And that's why be makbid to be light, not you, if you're whoever it is in the household that has to light. Should light candles for the household. Be makbid that it should be olive oil, and preferably kosher olive oil, and preferably olive oil from Eretz Yisrael. Do it with all the hidurim. And it'll cost you $10 more. The world won't end. It's fine. I promise you the world won't end. If you don't have the $10, call me. I'll gladly send it to you. I mean it very seriously. Why not? If I could be part of your mitzvahs, Neres Chanukah, that's my biggest chus in the world. And not only that, it should be done b'simcha and calm, with achanot before. And if a person's able to, not every person's able to, but if you're able to do it on time, that would be the best. And what does on time mean? So I'm giving you the opinion of Abaran Kotler Zecher Tzadik Livacha, Cham Ovadia, the way he explained it to me for America. It's different than what it says in Sfarim. In Sfarim he wrote for Israel. And I'll talk about the way with the calculation and time works in America. Cham Ben Sion clearly told it us. He was here once on Hanukkah at my parents' house. Father Shibadel Chaim Tovim also. Many, Moshe held like that, I think. Moshe, I'm not sure, I think so. So like this, there's a machloket if you light candles by Shkiat HaChama, like the Gaon holds, right by what we call sunset, the time that it says in the calendar sunset, or by Tzeit HaKochavim, which could be argued when Tzeit HaKochavim is, but anywhere from 42 minutes after Shkia all the way up to 90 minutes after Shkia. The Hasidim, for example, they light after Rabbeinu Tam, every night. But the Gemara says the mitzvah of Ne'erot Chanukah is the first 30 minutes. If the halacha is that you're supposed to light by Shkia, so you didn't get any part of the mitzvah technically. It's already Tichlei Regel Min HaShuk. So we rely on that today we're lighting for the Bnei Habayit, or today people are out later, or whatever. So of course you get a mitzvah, you should not light. But that's not the lechatchila. Came Abaran with his brilliance already years ago and said, if you light candles 23 to 25 minutes after Shkia, so you're still within the half an hour of the Gaon. So if you hold like the Rishonim that held that you have to light by Shkia, you gain that. And it'll light for another half an hour, so you still get the Rabbeinu Hashmashot of Rabbeinu Tam or whatever, of those shitot. So you say Yedei Kulam, you get all the shitot, you covered all the Rishonim and all the opinions, and you had Lakat Nerot. And that's why those who are machmir. Again, it's a chumrah. It's not halacha. It's a chumrah. But ultimately, the best time to light candles would be somewhere between 23 and 25 minutes after shkiyat hachama. Al pi halacha, many men won't like hearing this, but this is the fact. If your wife's home 25 minutes after shkiyah and you're not, she should light the candles. There's no reason to wait later for you to decide to show up. Because the mitzvah on the bait, on the household, it's not a mitzvah on the person. That's why only one person lights. We're not, the Ashkenaz do it different. But it's Faradim that we hold like Maran. It's mitzvah, ner yishu beito, only one person lights. And if you don't like that, then it doesn't feel right for you because you want to light Hanukkah candles. So come home early from work, the world won't end. I never heard anybody died from coming home early from work to light Hanukkah candles. I'm telling you, for a lot of years I've been doing medical referrals. I know all the atzolas that there are in the whole U.S. There was not even one phone call of a guy who had a heart attack because he came home early to light candles. Never happened in history. So he'll come home a few minutes early. Now, of course, if you work for somebody, it's going to cause you trouble at work. I'm not talking about that. That's an oinus and that's a light whenever you get home. But for a person who could and he's able to do it right, so why not? Why not do it right? And let's say during the week it's not applicable for you because you can't. You can't. You have work, you have that. You can't. You know what Hashem's going to test you? On Sunday. Sunday, you don't work. You're home. At least then, are you going to light on time? Or then also you're not lighting on time? If you lit on time, at least when the day we were off, so then it shows Hashem. The other days I was an oinus, so I lit later. I was mekil according to only some shitot. And Hashem will give you credit that every day you lit on time. But if on the day you were off, you also didn't light on time, so then what's left? So then you stop negligent, you don't care. So what's the heta? And I'll tell you more than that. Parties is not a reason to light late. My mother-in-law called me and told me she wants to make a party on Sunday of Hanukkah. I told her no problem, but only if it's at 9:30 in the morning. Otherwise I can't attend. I said, and I hope you don't take it personal. Because I have to have enough time to get home, to have a few hours of achanot before the lighting candles, and to light the candles of Hanukkah. And it's a couple hour drive home from your house. And if I have to choose between your party and my Neirot Hanukkah, with all due respect, I'm going to choose my Neirot Hanukkah. I said, if my Neirot Hanukkah are not important enough, then your party is for sure not important. And of course, my mother was a big tzaddik, so she said, yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Thank you for saying that. Of course, we're going to make it a different time completely. It won't contradict anybody's name. I said, fine, but don't do it because of me. I'm just explaining you my situation. Hashem tests us. What's more valuable to you? My friend's party or Hanukkah candles tonight on time? So again, a person who works and has to be at work, that's different. A person with the father lights, and anyway, it's not really for them. He lights for them anyway. So, Mikadin, you don't have to be home. There is an inyan to be home, but you don't have to. That's also, a free pass, we'll call it, according to most poskim. But if you're the one who's lighting, and you have the opportunity to light, you're working on Zoom anyway, so stop early and continue later. Take a 2-hour break, light Hanukkah candles, say the tefillot, sing Maos Sur, eat supper, then continue. Work all night afterwards, I don't care. I'm not against work, I'm the most pro-work possible. I have a very strong work ethic. This Hashem tests us. If you don't even do that, so you for sure don't belong to the Mala Club, because the Aleph base you don't believe in. Yeah. Nothing, you don't want to start it all. So think about it, take it to thought, take it to heart. Because Baruch Hashem help we should have a happy Hanukkah and a productive Hanukkah. Bli neder like this. Next week I plan on giving a shiur, even though it's Hanukkah, I'm going to finish candle lighting, whatever, and then I'll come here. There's enough time, we'll do it. The following week, I have a dilemma. I'll tell you what my dilemma is. You guys will decide. You don't have to decide now. You have time to think about it. The following week, Thursday night, is Zot Chanukah. So we could do a shiur, a regular shiur. I'm willing to do that. Or we could do what we did some other years and do something in Lakewood HaKodesh with a Suda, the right way, and that, and make, an inyan of Zot Chanukah in a big way. You'll think about it. You'll take your votes between yourselves. Who wants to feel what I do every week when I drive here? And based on that, we'll make a decision. It'll be broadcasted already. Tiskul Shanim Rabot.